Hello, I'm Kelly with DNNDev.com, and in this video we'll be providing you with an introduction to the form builder. To do that, we're going to be building a contact us form. Now, just because XMod Pro makes it easy to create forms that add information to the database doesn't mean all of your forms have to do that. For instance, a basic contact us form will typically just take information from an end user and send that information as an email notification to someone else, like the sales department or a site administrator. That's the kind of form we'll be building here. Along the way, you'll discover how to add and edit controls on your form, add basic validation to your controls, modify your form's buttons, and set up an email notification. To begin, ensure the Use Form Builder checkbox is ticked, and then click the New Form button. Now, before diving in, let's take a brief tour of the interface. By the way, I'm recording this using a pre-release version of XMod Pro. The interface may have changed somewhat since then. At the top of the form, there are 3 tabs. In general, changes you make in these tabs apply to the form as a whole. The first tab, Settings, is where you set the form's name and choose its data source. The second tab, Buttons, enables you to modify the form's submit and cancel buttons. The final tab, Styling, allows you to apply some overall styling to your forms, including themes, label placement, and rounded corners. Below the tabs is the main work area of the form builder. In the left column is the control picker. All of the form controls are categorized and grouped here. To see the controls in a particular category, simply click that category to expand it. To add a control to the form, click its button in the picker. Doing so will pop up that controls designer, which allows you to set its most commonly used properties. We're going to go ahead and add a couple of controls to the form so you can see how it works. Now, as you can see, once you've created your controls, they'll be added to the form canvas. This is where you'll see and interact with controls you've already defined for your form. For each control, you'll get a basic approximation of how that control will look, including its height and width. Of course, not all controls are displayed in this manner. There are some complex controls, like the HTML input, that cannot be rendered properly on the canvas, and there are other controls that aren't visible to the user at all. But they simply exist to provide your form with some functionality or utility, such as sending an email notification or supplying data to a list control. These controls will still be represented on the canvas, but don't reflect how or even if a control will be visible at runtime. However, once a control is on the form, hovering over it will display a toolbar. Using the toolbar, you can edit the control's properties, you can delete the control, and you can move the control simply by clicking and dragging. By the way, you can also move the controls by clicking elsewhere in the controls row and dragging as well. With that quick introduction out of the way, let's get started building our form. We'll start by giving the form a name. We won't be hooking into the database for this form, so we'll leave the data source set to none. We'll cover the buttons and styling in a few moments. For the form, we'll need a text box for the user's name, one for their email address, and a text area for the user's comment or question. Let's add those items now. We'll give the text box an ID of txt name and a label or caption of name. We'll also assign a data field to this control called name. We'll be using that later on when we create the email. We also want to require that the user enter their name, so we'll click on the Validation tab, click the plus sign, and add a required field validator. For the text, we'll enter in 2 asterisks. This will appear next to the control if the control fails validation, and we'll also supply a text message that will appear near the bottom of the form in the validation summary, which we'll add a little bit later on. Next, we'll add the text box for the email address. We'll also assign a data field property of email. And we're going to add two validators for this control. The first, we want to require that they fill in their email address. And second, we want to ensure that that email address is a valid email address. Finally, we want to provide a way for the user to enter in their comment or suggestion or question. So we'll add a text area. And the data field for this will be comment. And we'll specify a height of 200 and a width of 400 for our text area. And no validation is needed. Now let's set up the form to send an email notification once the form has been submitted. We'll find that in the Other category. You'll notice the properties for the email control are much like they are for a regular email that you would send. We'll fill in the to, from, and subject. We'll set the to sales at my site. From will be the website. And the subject line will be a new comment has been added. Next, we can choose to send the email as a text email or HTML. We'll just choose text for now. And we will be sending this only when the record is added. Finally, let's create the body of our email. Remember when we assigned a data field to our controls? This is where they're being used. You can see that we've included a field token for each control. They're surrounded by double brackets. In this way, XMod Pro makes it easy to include data from your form in your emails. The form builder has added the email control to our form so that we can come back and edit it later, but it won't be visible to the user. Finally, we need to add a validation summary control to the form to display any error messages that occur as the result of the form validation process. You'll find that also under the Other category. We just need to give our validation summary control an ID and a header text. We'll leave our display to bullet list. Right now, the form is functionally complete. Let's just clean things up a bit to finish things off. If you think about it, a contact us form usually has just one button on it the user presses to submit their question. By default, the form builder creates an add button and a cancel button. It also creates an update button for when you're editing records, but we can ignore that in this case. Let's change our add button's text to something more appropriate. We'll leave the update button as it is since it won't show up. And we want to remove the cancel button from our form. Last but not least, let's add some visual sizzle to the form on the Styling tab. By default, the form has basic .NET Nuke styling in which the default DNN CSS class names are used in the form. However, XMod Pro comes with a whole host of other styling options. These are professionally designed themes that come from the free open source jQuery UI site. You'll probably find something on this list that will work for your site, but better than that, you can roll your own using the jQuery UI theme roller application located at jQueryui.com. There you can point and click your way to just the right look for your site. Once you're done, download the style sheet and images they provide, upload them to the XMod Pro Themes directory on your site, and they'll be available for use in all of your forms. One of my favorite themes is UI Sunny, so I'll choose that. By choosing a theme, I'm also given the opportunity to display rounded corners on my form. These give the form a nice contemporary feel and will appear on all modern browsers except IE 8 and below, which will show squared-off corners. IE 9 and all other major browsers will display the rounded corners. Next, we can change how the labels for our controls are displayed. As you can see, by default, they are aligned to the left, but we have the choice of right-aligning the text, and notice in the canvas below you'll see that change. I can even place the labels on top of the controls. If I wanted the labels to be left or right aligned, I could also change the width of those labels. However, in the case of this form, I would like to have the labels on top of the control. I almost forgot that I do want to use rounded corners on supported browsers, so I'll check this box so we can see what it looks like. And we're done. All we have to do now is click the Create Form button, and we're done. And as you can see, here is our completed form. Now if we leave the name or email control blank and click Submit Question, you'll see the validation works. And here below is our validation summary. I think you can see the Form Builder is an excellent, easy-to-use way to generate and edit forms. And if at any point you need more features than the Form Builder provides, you can simply convert your form to a custom HTML layout form and tweak the code to get just the look or functionality you require. I'm Kelly Ford, and this has been a tour of the Form Builder in XMod Pro. Thanks for watching.